So just a little bit of context as to kind of why we are here. So as part of the Cogent Skills Careers Strategy, we recognise that our role is to support employers with relevant tools and knowledge to better enable them to inspire, engage with and recruit young talent. And that is really important because it will help to build the talent pipeline of over 200,000 people required across the science industries by 2035. Key to this is building really good partner networks, and as such we have been working with the Careers and Enterprise Company for a number of months now. We've been working together with Ollie, who's with us today, to identify shared priorities and areas of interest, and as you can imagine there's lots of them. One of them is definitely work experience and how we can support our employers' understanding of that. And so that is really why we are here with this webinar today, and that's where the idea came from. And what better time to talk about it than during National Work Experience Month. So what we are going to be talking about today is understanding modern work experience, why it matters and how you can all get involved. Exploring how modern work experience and careers outreach can deliver real business benefit. We are delighted we're going to hear from some employers directly who are already delivering, and understand how to engage with schools, special schools, colleges and young people in partnership with your local careers hubs. So I am delighted to welcome our speakers today. I've already introduced myself. We have two employer speakers today. Thank you so much for giving your time and energy up for this. We are absolutely delighted to have you with us. So we have Mary McCarthy-Keane, Head of Graduate and Education Services at BAE Systems, and Mark Wood, Social and Sustainability Lead at Siemens. And of course, I'm also really pleased to be joined by Ollie Hallam, Business Partnerships Manager and STEM Lead at the Careers and Enterprise Company. So I will now hand over to Ollie to take us through the next part of the webinar. Thanks, Ollie.
Brilliant. Thanks, Rachel, and welcome everybody to the webinar. Going to hear from me to begin with, just to give a bit of overview on the context, really, of what modern work experience is and what the aspirations from government are. Before we do move on to our employers who are delivering, which I think will be really helpful. And of course, just to reiterate, I think the value often in these sessions comes from the Q&A sessions at the end. So do think of anything which you want to ask. A little bit of context before we get into modern work experience, just to remind people, if they haven't heard of the Careers and Enterprise Company, our mission, as you can see there, is to help every young person find their best next step. We do work across all different sectors, but I think just to reiterate the importance of the sectors that you all work in, and really to highlight why this is an important partnership for us, and working with employers such as yourselves is vital for the UK economy, but also for young people. So we're the independent national body preparing young people for their futures. We've got 44 careers hubs covering 96% of schools and colleges across the country, and they work in partnership with mayoral, strategic and local authorities to connect employers with local skills leads. So, one of the takeaways is certainly do connect with your local careers hub if you don't already. We work in a variety of different ways, and there's lots of different things we do. So it is sometimes a bit difficult to summarise, but actually this is how we would talk about the work that we do. So we support schools, colleges and employers to deliver greater impact through training, tools and resources. And I think, you'll hear more about those sort of tools and resources that we have today. We work with places to build those strong local networks, and I touched on that a little bit through that Careers Hub network that we have, but we're really aware that local integration is vital to achieve impactful work. And we also have a sort of burgeoning amount of data and analysis to help drive continuous improvement. So we have a future skills questionnaire, which is over the last cohort was over 330,000 young people talking about what they want to get from their futures and what sectors they're interested in. The Gatsby benchmarks, which are how schools measure themselves, and also the employer standards, which I'll touch on. So a little bit of a summary for you guys before we delve into what you all came for, the main event, which is to talk about modern work experience. So, as a reminder, this is the government's vision for modern work experience, and the ambition is around delivering 2 weeks' worth of work experience with a focus on multiple targeted and variable experiences, totaling 10 days. Okay, so that's split into 5 days in years 7 to 9 or key stage 3, and 5 days in years 10 to 11 or key stage 4. And I think useful to sort of set that context before we delve into some of the detail. So what does that mean for employers? I think there's some really important messaging here. So, this is the cusp of something new. Work experience has been delivered in the same way, more or less, for the last 40 years. And I think, one of the key things here is to reinforce that is changing. And I think that's a real opportunity for employers on the call. There's going to be more flexibility. So 10 days doesn't mean 2 weeks, which is what some of us might have done, back in our education. I think that the word mosaic there is a nice one to bring that imagery to life. There's lots of different things that we can do to support young people. I think there's a real reminder that a quiet spark can really change everything. And I think thinking back to those moments of inspiration we had when we were at school, and the ability for you to do that as employers, but for young people is really important. And I think the other thing which is really beneficial about this change is that actually businesses of every size can now take part. This extra flexibility means that we don't have the same capacity constraints that you might have had previously. So why does this matter? I think hopefully by being on the call, people inherently see some of the value in this work. But we know that there's too many young people being left behind, and we'll have seen reports in the press recently about the numbers of young people not in employment, education, or training, really damaging for them and for society. But the evidence is clear. If we support young people to have these experiences, it's going to have a positive impact on the level of NEET rates. We also know that work experience is widely widely recognised to have a big impact on the amount of money we're spending to support young people. If we can get young people into work, we're going to save a huge amount of money as well. Not that finances is the be all and the end all, but I think there's that sort of dual positive impact. A little bit more about the benefits, and again, hopefully I'm sort of preaching to the choir slightly on this call. Employers who offer any form of work experience are 77% more likely, that's moved on without me touching, are 77% more likely to report business benefits than those who offer none. 83% of business owners and senior leaders say that well-designed work experience is an effective way to attract entry-level employees. So if talent pipelines are a challenge for you, then this is beneficial. And then employers who embed essential skills in their work experience, and we'll explore a little bit about how we might do that, 72% more likely to say it improves young people's employability. I think that is just some of the examples, but I wanted to pull some stats out because hopefully that'll be useful for you if you need to engage internally. So what should modern work experience look like? We think that some of the key changes are that it should start early. So that means from year 7 onwards. We know that if we going to change stereotypes for young people, it needs to start early. And it can be light touch to begin with, but then get more in depth as you move through their education with those multiple touch points. We need to make sure that it's inclusive, because we want to make sure that young people who might miss out otherwise are included in this. And we really want to make sure that it's co-designed. So it's you guys as employers working with education to make sure that it's meaningful. And I'm going to go into a bit more detail on what meaningful work experience looks like underneath that. And we've got a model that we've developed called Equalect, which we think is a really beneficial and supportive way to make sure that the opportunities follow those frameworks and are also inclusive and fair. So when we say what a meaningful work experience is, these are some of the things that we think that you should be thinking about as employers to make sure that it's having a positive impact on those young people. So let's make sure that it's got a clear purpose. So that's shared between yourselves and the young people and the school. Underpinned by learning outcomes, and this is something that we've done a lot of work on, is actually building out what the learning outcomes are of different types of work experience with education, so that they know why a young person is going in and having experience, and they can really understand whether or not they've achieved that. Two-way interaction is really important as well. In a world where we can use virtual experiences and hybrid experiences, got to make sure that we maintain that two-way interaction, because that's where there's real kind of learning on both sides. Making sure that there's a range of people within the organisation that they can meet. So rather than spending all of their time with one person, giving them that exposure to different types of people, different characters, different jobs, and so on. A task set by the employer is a really good way to give them a feel of what it's like to work at in your industry, in your organisation, but also think of that as an opportunity to really benefit from young people's insights, creativity, different perspectives. They think there's a real opportunity there to design stuff that's beneficial, and also providing feedback for the young person about their work. As an employee, you would expect feedback on what you've done, and likewise for young people, really supporting them with that. And then after the experience, giving opportunities for the young person to reflect on what they've learned or what they've gained in terms of skills and knowledge. So those are sort of the key kind of thoughts around what we should be thinking about when we make work experience meaningful. And we've just got
the next slide introduces the Equalex approach.
I don't know if that's paying
and
for
what
you.
the young person.
Apologies, I think that's got an audio cue on it, but that should be back now. So what this shows is just how that progressive approach might look over a young person's education. So on the top line there in the blue, you can see those two blocks where in year 10 you might have 2 weeks work experience, and then post 16 you might have another 2 weeks work experience. This new modern work experience shows that actually throughout a young person's secondary education, they should be having a selection of experiences. So in years 7, 8, and 9, there's maybe lighter touch opportunities where they're exploring different, introducing and inspiring different sectors and different roles. As they move into year 9, 10, and so on, they're investigating, exploring a little bit more about what those roles are and what those sectors are, and they've hopefully got a better idea about what they're interested in. And then from years 10, 11, and post 16, they can actually go in and apply and demonstrate the skills that they've learned throughout what the work that they've done.
And what the young person needs.
Apologies, there's clearly an audio description on some of these slides, so I'll just go back to that. As I said, we've really sort of worked with education to make sure that for each of those different levels, they're mapped to learning outcomes within education. So I think, in terms of this webinar now, we don't need to worry too much about that. But what I would say is that education is really thinking hard about how they can make sure that the experiences are beneficial for young people at each stage, and they understand why they're going in and having those experiences. So this is an example of sort of some of the types of opportunities and some of the types of things that you could think about delivering. It's not just a 2-week block, and as I say, I've hammered that home a little bit, but actually it could be a short workplace experience. So it could be a day. It could still be a longer workplace experience, 2 days, 3 days, but really it can be divvied up however you'd like to do that. It could be a multiple employer experience. So if you are a smaller organisation and maybe you don't feel like you've got the capacity to host completely by yourself, you could either bring together people in your supply chain or people that you work with to give a young person experiences of different types of employer as well. I mentioned this briefly already, but it can be hybrid and virtual as long as you make sure you think about how to keep it meaningful. Or it could be project-based learning, so where you perhaps go in and support with the introduction of a project and give a young person insight into your organisation or sector. They go off and work on a project, and then they come back afterwards. But I think really the key point is that there's a variety of different ways that you can deliver for different ages of young people. So that's a bit of a summary. That's a little bit about how it's changed and the flexibility that it affords employers. And now we're going to hand over to our wonderful employers who have given up their time to come and talk about the work that they do. So we've got Mary, who's up first as Head of Graduate and Education Services at BAE Systems. And she's going to introduce herself, talk a little bit about the work they do at BAE Systems, and hopefully provide some inspiration on what you might be able to do within your organisations as well. So over to you, Mary. I think you're on the line with us. Yep,
yes, thank you. Thanks, Ollie. Afternoon, everybody. As Ollie said, I'll just do a very brief overview as to the role that I play within BAE Systems. And then what I'd like to do, I was trying to think what would be helpful. So I thought I'll share with you how we structure and organise our work. And I'll talk you through some of the challenges we face. So it's important to acknowledge that sometimes there are challenges, and helpfully talk you through some of the things that we've done to help resolve some of those challenges that we face. So I work within a central capability space, which means I'm responsible for the teams that cover graduates and education services, but also our apprenticeship provision as well. So we set kind of the programme structure and the governance that then allows us to support our sites across the UK to deliver programmes. So what I wanted to do was really just to illustrate there on that slide how we organise our work. So we focus on STEM outreach as one bucket of activity, youth employability as another bucket of activity, and attraction programmes as the third. Now, I've been in BAE Systems for 6 years. It's probably taken me 5 years to remember the 3 headings, which is why I've got a slide. But anyway, so in terms of STEM outreach, this for us is kind of a real focus. Ollie, you talked about kind of a spark and an interest, and for us, this is where we get that spark. So I focus on engaging people not into BAE Systems, but into STEM-related activities and STEM industries. So we run a range of programmes you'll see on the screen, like roving robots that people may be familiar with, and engineering fairy tales. But for us, our flagship programme really is our Education Roadshow. And that targets our Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3 populations. And we do that in partnership with the Royal Navy and the RAF as well. And it's an immersive experience. It's trying to bring STEM to life. And really the focus there is around young people seeing that if they didn't think that they were interested in STEM or could be engineers, that actually it's for everybody. So really focusing on kind of all the different skills that we need in these industries. So whether it's being creative, being a problem solver, it really is drawn out through kind of that roadshow. And we're really proud of that. It's a really important part of the work that we do. This year, we're aiming to target over 600 schools and probably around 1,500 young people. So for us, it's a way of lighting that spark across a really big population, because we perhaps can't offer a work experience programme to 1,500 people, but we can get people thinking about the industry and thinking about where they could see themselves as they move into employment. In our youth employability bucket, that's where our work experience sits. So we run virtual work experience, we have face-to-face work experience, we have World of Work, which is a more internal focus day in the industry, and a focus, as you imagine, around interviews and CV writing as well. And then our final bucket, just as an overview, is our attraction programmes. And our attraction programmes have a direct pipeline and alternative route into an apprenticeship programme, or the opportunity for a direct route into our apprenticeship programmes. So you'll probably recognise some of the activities there around T-levels, and our Getting To programme is Movement to Work. And we target there young people between the ages of 18 and 30 that not in education or employment or training, and that's a 3-week programme that we run alongside the King's Trust and the Launch Group as well. So we have a range of activities that support kind of talent pipeline. So I just wanted to illustrate what we do. And if you sat there and you're thinking it's day one for us, that looks like a lot. We didn't start here. We've built this over time, and I think that's a really important message that just to understand that you don't have to do everything on day one is really important. And we are continually kind of reflecting on the programs that we run and whether they're working and adding value. So I think for us, we invest in these programs because across the company, and in particular within early careers, but actually across the company, there's a real passion for STEM outreach. And I think we see it as a social responsibility to support our local communities as well. And that isn't just an early careers thing, it is as an organisation, something that we're really invested in. Our focus really is around, for us, building a diverse talent pipeline, but this is not simply about recruitment. This is about building the confidence, building the employability skills with young people. So whether they're a talent pipeline for us, or a talent pipeline for another organisation that might be in the same geographical region, we all benefit. And I think, Ollie, you touched on that at the start with your introduction. So for us, there's no better insight than experiential learning, having time with young people to experience what the world of work looks like. It's a real focus for us and a bigger focus over the last few years. And it's mutually beneficial. This is not about something that serves us. This is about young people having the opportunity to step into the workplace and make a decision based on facts, whether this is something that they could see themselves doing into the future, whether it's an organisation they want to be in, whether it's a culture that they want to be part of, and without stepping through the doors, whether virtual or in face-to-face, it's really difficult to make a judgment on that. And I did want to share, I took a punch, you wouldn't mind a personal story here, but I'm a mum of a 16-year-old who's just finished his GCSEs, and he left school wanting to do one thing. And the day after his GCSEs, he said, I want to go in this pathway and I want to do an apprenticeship. And for me, as a mum, I'm thinking, okay, I'm an advocate of apprenticeships. I would support you in an apprenticeship. But this could be a really big, well, it is a big decision for the rest of your life. You know nothing of that environment. It was really just out of the blue. And I'm sat there thinking, helping all these young people, perhaps forgot to speak to my own child about it. And had he had the work experience, I could be reassured that actually, yes, this is the right thing for you. So going back to the experiential learning, it does allow young people to step in and think, it's really not what I thought. I think I might go and do something else, or the opposite of that. This is more than I'd imagined, and I'm definitely this is the career pathway for me. So, as I said, the experiential elements you don't get through an interview, so it's really important for us that we continue to build in that way. I think the other thing that I just wanted to touch on is kind of some of the challenges with setting up programs. And I'm sat here as a manager and a leader of the service that's been asked to set up a program recently, and I've had exactly the same questions as no doubt the audience are having. So I went straight to, can we support it? What would it look like? How big will it be? How do I make it meaningful? How do I get people on board? All those questions are really normal questions, and they're actually really helpful because it allows you to get to the solutions that you need. So for us, when we think about new programs, it's about accessibility and it being meaningful. So how do we build a program that is accessible to a large number of people? And one of the things that we learned through COVID was that actually we can have more than one way of doing things. So we set up a virtual work experience, and we were only, if we're being honest, we were only driven by COVID, and we wanted to ensure that we had continuation of service. Our virtual work experience is now a core part of our offering. It is as important as our face-to-face experience. And when we looked at the virtual work experience, we wanted to ensure that externally there was some validation there, and that as people stepped into virtual or face-to-face work experience, that they could see there was parity. So when it was new and we had all those questions about how do we make it meaningful, does it feel too big, how do we do it, we really leaned into the support of other organisations, what are other people doing, where have we got best practice. And as a Lancashire Cornerstone employer, we worked with the Careers Hub and looked through getting our virtual work experience accredited. And that gave us some reassurance that we were doing the right things. It's reassurance to our young people that it's a valuable experience as well. I think the adaptability with the programs is really important because we're dealing with a really diverse population. And what we've seen through a number of our programs, whether it's movement to work or work experience, is that some young people perhaps aren't ready to step into a face-to-face experience, and that's okay. Some young people are facing financial restrictions. That means travelling every day is a challenge. And for some, they're just simply not located near one of our sites. So if our aim is to have a diverse talent pipeline, we're going to fail at the first hurdle if you can only do work experience because you live around the corner from the site. So the virtual work experience is really, really important to us. So I think what I would say is if setting up a programme today and it was new, recognise that it might feel like a challenge, but that's okay. And I would just say start small and take a step and think about the work that you do and the work that you know and integrate that into your programme design. So we've just done a bit of a review, actually, some of our work experience and how they've gone in the last cycle. And the common thing coming through, both from the teams that deliver the work experience and the young people through the surveys, is the workplace scenarios, the business challenges, and really understanding work feeling real, the projects feeling real, and they are real. We pull real examples that have happened, there have been challenges in the business, and we've brought those into our work experience environments. And they work in a virtual space too. Like you might have a problem in a workshop and you might fix that in a workshop, but not all problems are solved in that space. Sometimes we need to step out. So what we really do is to focus on the behaviours. We want to see the problem solving, the confidence, the adaptability, kind of vision, all those things are built into the programmes. So I think just to recap on some of the challenges, for us, it's really about how do we make it accessible? How do we ensure that everybody gets an opportunity? Well, we do that through having both face-to-face and virtual. How do we ensure that we have a robust programme that's accredited, or we lean into the support and best practice and accreditation and people that can guide us as well, so we can be reassured. I did have another point, Gordon. And I think it was around just building and continually growing as well. So we have core programs and a core program offering, but we've also seen an organic growth in some of our provisions. So in one of our sites, they've recognised within the community that it's a population that perhaps haven't been engaged fully. So young people that are homeschooled, and they've created a version of work experience that is slightly different, and it needed to be different. They engage more upfront with parents, with the young person themselves. It's a shorter experience, but fundamentally the thing that doesn't change is the meaningfulness of it and the fact that it relates to industry. So we're giving people real experiences. One of the sites has done a similar kind of bespoke programme for young people with SEND. And again, slight tweaks, slight changes to the programme, but the parameters of it being meaningful and being a real work and real work experience hasn't changed. So I think what I would say is build on what you know, lean into some of your support and just take a step. I think the final thing I'd like to touch on, and it might be commonplace, maybe not, but my final point really is around kind of access to site. So we deal with this all the time. We have really high levels of security. Some places we can go, some places we can't go. And I'm sure it's the same for colleagues on the call as well. But you're thinking, well, actually, I want to bring somebody in and give them a meaningful experience, but there are restrictions. So again, I would just offer that when you're doing the planning process, think, what are we trying to do? What can we deliver? And then just, sounds like I'm preaching, but we have to think in a really agile way. So we think, well, actually, we can't get access to this site. We don't want people in that geographical location not to access a service, so we can lean into our virtual work experience. But we've also thought about our footprint and what resources we have that we can encourage young people to step into. So we're really fortunate, and I recognise that we have in Barrow, we have a community centre that is funded by BAE, but is there as a community facility, and that's been brilliant. So now we've got parents that can come in and see the end of placement presentations. We've got young people that can walk in and ask questions. We're having to go through security. And we've made really conscious decisions as a business to, when we're redesigning our footprint, to put our education services locations outside of the security restrictions. So we've had developments in near Preston and developments up in Glasgow, where the business made a decision to put our education stations, we call them, I've forgotten the name, to put those near reception again, so we can just bring young people in, but they are still engaging with real life examples. They're still connected to the business, they're still walking through the front doors, but they're not going into some of the more secure areas. So I think it can be done. It's just about thinking kind of in an agile way. And I think what I would say is advice to myself, having the opportunity to set up a new program just the other week, it can feel worrisome, but there are loads of people that do it. And when you're there with young people, listening to the end of placement presentations, listening to the journey people have been on through our movement to work, you will not regret it. It is worth the effort, but just lean into your support. I think that's it from me. Thanks, Ollie. I did have another slide, but I kind of embedded it, so I'll hand back to you. Thanks.
Well, that's brilliant. Look, I hope everybody listening was having as many sort of thoughts and sort of little snippets of inspiration as I was. We've got the Q&A coming, so just a reminder, if that did spark anything, put your questions in there. And without further ado, so we do have time for Q&A. I'm going to introduce Mark Wood, who some of you might know already, but he's Social and Sustainability Lead for UK and Ireland for Siemens. They do brilliant stuff, and I'm not going to steal any of his thunder because he's going to talk about it and again, hopefully provide some of that inspiration for you guys. So, Mark, over to you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Ollie. And thank you so much, Mary. I was nodding away there like a nodding dog. There was so much great stuff in there. It's brilliant. So I'll try and not repeat too much of that stuff because we didn't plan this to be very similar, but we're saying very, very similar things, which is good for me to know as well, because I think just as an important starting point, it's difficult, this stuff. And especially if you are a smaller business or even a larger business that doesn't have a dedicated member of staff to look at this kind of work, it can be really, really difficult. So it's great to share that best practice, and it's great to have that focus. And that's probably, I'll try and focus a little bit more on that kind of strategic perspective of it. So to give you another side of it. So yes, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Mark Wood, I'm the Social Sustainability Lead for Siemens in Great Britain and Ireland. Hopefully you've heard of us. We are a large technology business now. We were an engineering business up to about 5 years ago. We are still an engineering business as well. We still manufacture. We also have a technology. We are a technology business, but we also have a financial services and our own bank. So we are a bit of everywhere. We're lingering everywhere. Siemens, you'll never get away from us. We are a global business, about 300,000 people across the world. There's about 13,000 of us here in the UK. And we are very proud of the work we've done for the last, I think we're 178 now. And that includes some firsts, such as the first electronic lift, the first X-ray, as well as the first telegraph cable, which was laid between America and Ireland. So on to the topic in point. If we can have the next slide, please. When we've been looking at modern work experience, and this absolutely reiterates what Mary's saying, when you're starting out, my top advice would be, we all know it's a great thing to do. We all know it's something that's absolutely important for us, should all be doing. But if you are a business, you need a business case. Why are you doing this? And that is quite often mixed, and there's mixed messages. There's all sorts of political reasons. There could be reasons such as you are facing an aging workforce. It could be that you are struggling with your recruitment. Maybe you want to just position yourself in the locale or with your customers about being a responsible business. We've also lots of the companies we work with, not so much us, but lots of companies have to work on things like social value and also driving volunteering. So there's a number of different reasons why you want to do this, and it's bespoke to you. You need, if you are starting off with this, but even if you're not and you're reviewing your strategy, I would always say you need to start with what you know. Now that's often I'm quite a direct person. I'm from Salford, so I don't fluff these things up, but don't be afraid of saying what the business needs as well as what we know schools needs. If all businesses are active in modern work experience, there'll be enough work experience to go around for all students. So you need to really be selfish and drive what you want to do from a strategic perspective. And if it's not part of that strategy, it won't be sustainable. So even if it is just you're starting out and you are just looking at your initial engagement, you want to reach out to some local schools, you've got to really develop that within your strategic approach. And you can see ours shared as an example here on the screen. You can see work experience is second there. We back all of that up with our own education experience. We engage with about 700,000 students every year. And we have a very clear focus on that, what that is, which is our business strategy, digitalization and sustainability. We also have the undercurrent, which is great to hear what Mary was saying as well about equity within that approach. But that's where our work experience focuses. We again have a tiered approach, and we again don't drive this towards recruitment, which I'll tell you about in a little bit of time. But if that's part of that strategy, it's part of your business, it's linked in, it's got business worth, it will be sustainable. So to give you the, I suppose, the Siemens perspective on this, we do take some early career professionals every year. They are, we take apprentices, we take graduates, and we take interns, all of which are paid for positions. But we don't have the traditional recruitment problem, which I know a lot of people on this call will have. So we last year took 79 early career professionals, and we had 10,000 applications. I know BA Systems are exactly the same, with huge many numbers of thousands of applications. AI is not going to turn that around. That is going to be the new normal. So we need to address what our business needs are. It's not recruitment. We don't need to get people to come and think about, which means we're much freer. We can look at this as an ecosystem. Like Mary was saying before, we're not doing this to come, if you want to come and work for Siemens, absolutely brilliantly. And I think about 6% of the people that do work experience apply to us. But that's great, because our ecosystem works much bigger. And if our supply chain are having those recruitment needs, so we're going to feel that in the long run. So this is very much a joint approach on this as completely. But our challenges were around equity. We were just attracting Oxbridge students. We could get different diversity of gender and ethnicity, but they were all Oxbridge students. We needed that diversity of thought, not just the same way of addressing problems. We're a business that solves problems at the end of the day, so we need that diversity. We had that understanding because we're a tech business, but we also manufacture, we're also a bank, we also have a financial services, we also have a consultancy. Difficult to try and bring that all in, so understanding that wider ecosystem, because we know from our supply chain, many of them do have those skill shortages. That does affect us. We want to work together with them, not just be this big business that draws in. So we need to look at that ecosystem. But one of the main problems we have is a shelf life of skills. And that is because the business changes so quickly. As I said, 3-4 years ago, we were an engineering business, we're now a technology business. So we wanted to really kind of draw down those the range of skills that we need rather than specific job roles, because those job roles probably won't be around in 2 or 3 years' time. So we need to preempt and horizon scan what we're doing. So it's a strategic approach. That's our need. If we have the next slide, please. Our framework, therefore, looks like this. So this actually mirrors the Equalex that Careers and Enterprise Company have put together. We are also involved in that program. We're a cornerstone employer for the Greater Manchester area, because that's where our HQ is now. But I've highlighted the areas within our full delivery framework, which are work experiences. So the other thing to say is perception. Again, Mary mentioned this, but it doesn't have to be 2 weeks. Ollie mentioned the same. It doesn't have to be long term. This is a number of engagements with businesses that can build up, and it can build up. We work with 4-year-olds up to PhD students. So we really build this up across a number of different engagements. And that could be schools visiting us, STEM school visits, coming into our offices, opening up our doors, up to targeted recruitment at acquisition. And again, collaboration there. We've just taken part in a work experience called Discover Tech, which was us and about 6 or 7 other big tech companies all working together with a local university. It doesn't have to be one business. As well as then building that up to our work experience offer, which is again virtual. That's again an equity approach. I couldn't agree with you more, Mary. We're never going to go back from that. And I think just to add to that, it's real life experience of work. We're all engaging virtually now. I was on a call this morning with an Indian colleague. I would call this evening with a Portuguese colleague. Virtual is our work. So work experience doesn't just have to be face to face. That interaction, absolutely, but it can be varied. We then do the face to face, and we also still offer work shadowing, but that's for for people that may be in the business. That's not necessarily equitable, but our face to face work experience is all by application now. We don't offer that to any staff member, any relative of a staff member. Even our CEO's daughter wanted to come in. She was very welcome. She applied like everybody else. And that's our equity angle there as well. So lots and lots of different things. You can build up your work experience rather than going, right, we've got to do 2 weeks here, and that school is telling me I want this particular time, and that other college is telling me I need this other time. Almost drown out the noise. What can you offer? What are your needs? You will then be able to build up a strategic business message for this rather than it being reactive. Last slide, please. This is a journey. And one of the things, again, that Mary was saying, what we always look at is also a regular review of this kind of stuff. So we use the business for societal impact model of input, output, and impacts. We do track our outcomes. That's the reach numbers, the demographics. I call it the happy sheet, that kind of, and how was it for you during today? But we also try and measure the impact. And I think that's really, really important. If we can look at the kind of the before and after thoughts, the confidence levels, the knowledge levels. It doesn't have to be rocket science, just that, are you interested in the STEM career? After the experience, are you now interested in the STEM career? You can measure the distance traveled. We have got further development about specific age groups. There's also specific pathways. We've done a lot of work internally in the business to challenge. Do we just need graduates or do we need more apprentices? We've been able to change our model for that. We now take more apprentices than graduates. And also those targeted groups that we need from an equity position. And then there's the external review as well. And you can see the top right hand at the screen then is the employee standards for the Careers and Enterprise Company. They're our last 2 years. And you can see we were red on one bar, which as someone with slight OCD, I did not like, but it helps us, that external review of using standardized benchmarks allowed us to develop our program a little bit further. So we've now done things like continued engagement. We have a QR code where students can click in, sign in, and stay in touch. We have various communications, let them know when opportunities are available, but also wider CVs. We don't take CVs. So we didn't include CVs into our workshops and our work experience, but by using the Careers and Enterprise as employer standards, we realized that, again, we're not doing this for recruitment, so therefore we now include that skills and CVs development as well. And that's me, a whistle-stop tour, but my best advice, it's starting with a strategy that's right for you, scale it within your business and your need and your capability, and constantly review that round so you've got a really sustainable business driver.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mark. Some really insightful advice and I think an aspirational program to aim for. But let's remember that key advice, which is that you can start simple and make it relevant to you. I will very briefly mention the employer standards that Mark referenced there, because I think that any employers who are looking at starting this journey or continuing this journey or improving the quality of their journey they're on, it's a really useful tool for you. It's a framework that we developed for employers. You can just have a look at the framework if you want. And there's 3 buckets which basically divide what really good careers outreach looks like into 9 standards. There's a free online tool which you can do, takes about 25 minutes, half an hour. And once you do that, you get access to all of your results. So you can see how you are achieving against those. And if you're like Mark, you can focus on making sure that none of them are red. But you can certainly use it to make sort of strategic decisions around where you're doing well and where you might improve it. And you can look at how you're doing against other sectors and businesses of your size. But importantly, you also get access to a bunch of resources. I'm not going to spend time delving into what they are particularly, but there's a really sort of substantial set of resources. Will, I just saw a question come through in the chat. We can send it through in a second. Case studies, evidence, and so on, including specific resources made in response to the results that we saw employers were getting. Over 1,700 employers have done it so far, and we saw that all employers were struggling in particular areas, so we've made guides that support that. I'll send a link in the chat, and there's a slide at the end where you can see how to access all of this information. And before we move on to questions, I just wanted to show one video. Originally, we actually had a young person who was going to join us, but probably the only valid excuse for them not being here is that they actually are on work experience this week. So we regretfully don't have the young person, but we're delighted they're off having an experience themselves. But I wanted to show a video to highlight and bring us back to really what this means for young people. Rachel, can you give me a thumbs up if the sound's working okay once I start going?
Okay, deep breath.
So, does it sound working?
Do I look smart or like I borrowed my mum's shoes to answer that? Okay, so me. I'm 15. I've not got any connections, no uncle sat in some big office. Got just this feeling like I want to make something of myself. I want to see what I could do and who I could be. My teacher's always bigging me up, reckons I got talent, gets proper giddy talking about careers, destinations, and well, part of me wants to believe it. I really do, but I can't see it. I can't picture myself from those places. Thing is, loads of us, we've got dreams bigger than our postcodes, bigger than this box we've been shoved in. But now they're talking about giving every young person 10 days worth of work experience, proper chances to see and try stuff. That's massive. Because most of us, we don't even know what's out there. All we see is jobs that look like they're for someone else, but not us. And honestly, work experience, no one ever tells you what to say. Like, do I shake hands or high five? Feel like I'd high five, accidentally, and then just like die. So yeah, this guarantee, it can't just be words on paper, office tour, a pretend job where you're basically just like furniture at the corner. Nah, it's gotta be real. Proper chance to try loads of different things. Real stuff that makes you think, I belong here, I could do it, I might even be brilliant at this. But this guarantee won't be easy. I mean, it's dead easy to just let it all fail. All talk, no action. But if that happens, it's people like me who miss out and we don't get another shot. So that's why I'm asking you. Let's make it real. Make it count. And not just for the lucky few, but for all of us. This is a once in a generation chance. Get this right, and you don't just change my future. You change the story for a whole generation. So please, let's make it work.
Hopefully just a reminder of actually the impact that we can have in terms of what we do. So we're just about on time. We're a couple of minutes late, but now we've got time for some questions. I haven't been monitoring the chat, but hopefully Rachel has. Are there any questions for us or the employers?
Yes, everyone is being a little bit shy at the moment, but we do have one question to kick us off. But just a massive thank you to all of our speakers there for a really fantastic discussion. And I think that what came across in all of the presentations was really leaning into that support that is available. So remembering all of those fantastic resources that the Careers and Enterprise Company have, like the employer standards, but also remembering that Cogent Skills have lots of things to support you with here, such as Not Just Lab Coat's website and ambassador training, so we can help to prepare your employees to do the best job they can when they go out and do careers outreach, because giving them the skills and confidence. So we will go straight into our questions here. So we've got a question from Abby Lopez. Mary, thank you, very helpful. We've considered virtual work experience, but when we attend virtual events, we find engagement not as strong. How do you manage this? It's great you do end of experience presentations.
It's interesting. We've just recently had this conversation as a team as well. And I think one of the things that I would say is it sounds really basic, but it's understanding the technology. So I think one of the barriers for some of our teams that are delivering work experience is not feeling confident with whether it's Teams or WebEx. So we're limited before we start. So I think it's getting into a space where you can play around with tech You can understand how to do breakout rooms. And again, it sounds really obvious, but we never leave anybody alone delivering, because you'll know yourself, it's really challenging trying to host large numbers of people and hold a room, facilitate, manage the tech. So really practical steps to ensure that we have team support. Now, I know that we're structured quite differently, so we're a big organisation, and I'm fortunate that I look after a number of teams. So we have a bespoke teaching, learning and assessment team, and we lean into their expertise. So we've got an education services population that are hosting and delivering, but we actually tie in with our teaching and learning team so that we can look at best practice. We have an inclusive learning team that check our resources, and we also have internal training. So the level 3 award in education and training is a core requirement for our staff. I know not all of that might be practical, but again, I'd lean back into what have we seen, where have we got good practice. It's really hard facilitating online, but if you've got connections with people, lean into that, see if you can, be a guest on it, come and observe. But I think the biggest barrier is understanding the tech and feeling comfortable and confident. We also structure our virtual work experience so they're not online all day. So we talked about real problems and challenges and work-related problems. So we actually do breakout rooms and give time and space to think, problem solve, and come back, measure that distance travelled, as Mark referred to. So don't feel like you've got to host all day and be on screen all day. And setting some of the expectations, like encouraging people with the cameras if they're comfortable. So yeah, just a few things. I'm mindful of time, but I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Mary. Mark, is there anything you wanted to add on that topic? Obviously, it's something you do as well.
Yes, it is. We do it in a slightly different way. We don't have the capacity that Mary just talked about. I'm very jealous. So we have a kind of a very much an online system, and our input has been to write it, but we tend to get, I think it's about an 89% completion rate, and we'll hit over 10,000 students this year. So the key to that is making it fun. It's not just death by PowerPoint. It's not just death by video. We really try and engage it with linking into, we have an education website with lots of games on there. So we include the games. There's like extended projects the students can do if they're particularly interested in engineering or in technology, or we have a marketing exercise. There's information that when the information is given, there are quizzes at the end of that. So it's kind of very much that interactive piece rather than let's just stare at a computer screen and listen, because we all know we don't listen as much. The other thing that we also do with that is we have live sessions in there, but we also have a student ambassador phase where individuals can send their emails through and they get a direct response from our early career professionals, so they can speak to the people they may want to be, not old ball people like me that will say the party line. They're not interested. They want to make that informed choice themselves. So be really, really realistic, keep it entertaining, keep it fun, short and snappy, as many different mediums as possible. And then that extended project works really well. We get about, I think it's about 60% of the students that do the work experience send us their extended project if they choose to. That's a completely optional part of it. Another kind of, just another thing to keep them engaged, we do a bronze, silver and gold participation certificate at the end. So that depends on the number of hours they've engaged with. So if they do over 30%, they get the bronze, but then it's over 70%, they get the gold certificate. So everyone gets a certificate on completion, but the longer you do, the better the standard. You're very welcome.
I would agree, Mark, with everything you've just shared there, and I think it's been answered beautifully. But again, just recognising that it's not all on you. So you mentioned about having young people, we have apprentices, bringing people from the business, and that in itself just brings another layer to the day. I think sometimes when you're responsible for a programme, you feel like you own and then have to be present for all of it. But I think we have a network within our internal organisations, whether huge or modest. And it's leaning into that for different perspectives as well. So yeah, I would agree with everything you've just shared.
Thanks, Mary. I don't know that Rachel's frozen, but there is another
I was
question
about
in the
to-
Q&A about proven models for large employers working with smaller businesses in their supply chain to work on work experience or outreach activities. This is tough. We have tried it. We're also part of something along with BA Systems called Destination Defence, where we are trying to look at like a UCAS for applications for apprentices, because there isn't one for apprentices, madly. But I think this is really, it comes back to setting that strategy. If you are aligned with your need, then there are charities out there that will help you do it. There are organizations, but most of them, there will be a fee to do it. But we have had some success just working with 4 or 5 of our different supply chain to run virtual, to run face-to-face days. We also actually did something through the Careers and Enterprise company, the Equalex, the Cornerstone employers, where we ran a sustainability work experience day. And we actually ran that with Alstom, who are our competitors. But it doesn't matter, because at this stage, when there's so many people looking for roles and so many people just getting the experience, needing the experience of work, it really doesn't matter. So I would reach out to everybody as long as you've got the same needs and there's a common thread in there. I think most people will be quite up for it.
Yeah, definitely. And we'd also just finally, because we are at time, reference Discover Tech, which I think you'd previously referenced as well, Mark, as a good model to look up. We're at 1 o'clock, so assuming Rachel has lost her connection, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to our speakers, Mark and Mary, and for Cogent Skills for sort of hosting us on this. Do reach out with any questions. We'll send details through in the PowerPoint at the end as well. So thank you very much for attending, everybody. Bye.